Thank you very much for having me. So Glenn Mallon from Dell. That picture's terrible. This is the same jacket, right? Different shirt. Right, so Dell Technologies, right? So a lot of you are probably thinking Dell Technologies AI, right? What is Dell known for? Throw it out there. You all use them, come on.
Laptops.
Bingo, right? So the great thing about Dell is no one has a real clue what we do. We do so much more in laptops that no one really has an idea about that. We have our fingers in pretty much every piece of data in some shape or form that you guys in your organizations touch on a daily basis. It's a bit scary, a little bit, right? But what we do is our fingers are just enabling you. We're not actually doing anything with your data, we're enabling your data for you to be able to work with it. Right, so 50 years ago Sunday, possibly one of the biggest achievements in human history happened. Men on the moon. Kind of a big deal. I'm seeing some skeptics. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm a believer either, but that being said, if you think 50 years ago, in order to do that, the processing power, not that I'm going to geek out or anything like that, but the processing power to do that was incredible, right? That's why it was such a big accomplishment. In order to be able to mathematically design programs in spaceships, et cetera, and other things to sustain life on the moon, it was impossible for the average person to actually achieve that. So that's why it's such a big deal, right? Also, it really showed man that's what we're actually capable of. You know, at that point, it did actually make people think things are more achievable in the world, right? It's kind of a big deal, right? Then in the last 10 years, or sorry, probably, I'm aging myself, 25 years now, the internet completely opened the world up for all of us. Some slower than others, but nowadays data is so available to us. And it's something that you and I daily use. We gain power from it, we gain insight from it, and we truly do use to make decisions, no matter what that decision is. Last night, use Google. Wife says, oh, I wonder where's Stevenage? Clearly I'm not from the UK. My wife is from the UK. Clearly not the right person to ask. Had to Google it, right? I feel empowered though, right? Which is a great thing. So with regards to with better data, right? So for my kind of epiphany moment of the power of data was, so I run financial services for the UK. So I've only been doing that for about 2.5 years now for Dell. So not necessarily a new market to me, but a new focused market. We had a partner of ours, I'll call, a very, very large US bank. Let's go back to 2008, bit of a problem globally with subprime. This bank, new regulations come in because it had to be bailed out. At any point in time now, the banks have a thing called CCAR, which is Comprehensive Capital Analysis Review, which means within a period of time, within 30 minutes, you have to give the SEC Securities and Exchange Commission a view of what your cash position is or your trade position is at that point in time, okay? And the reason for that is to minimize the risk if your whole company goes out at that point in time. You have cash where your investors and your shareholders and the people who bank with you are covered, right? So it's good, kind of a good thing, right? Considering some people lost some money and there's a lot of fear in the world 10 years ago. So we, at this point in time, the partner used to use a third-party company that did this for them. And the SEC came in and said, you need to do it yourself. You need to own that. You need to take responsibility for that. Because no one, by the way, in the market could do that in 30 minutes, it meant that this particular bank had to have $60 billion in capital sitting cold. Right? Okay? Most people, a lot of people here are in banking. You kind of understand that dead money, not being able to make any money off that, right? We worked with this partner in 2008 to help them create a system that allowed them to get a position point within 30 minutes. What this did was it freed up $13 billion to them to be able to use in the markets. Kind of a big deal, yeah? That changed the relationship that company had with Dell significantly, right? So for me, that was the epiphany moment. I'm thinking, we're actually helping companies really change things through data, right? But then I also had another epiphany moment and I think it may be 30 years ago. I might be dating myself, and I think it was my scare moment of data. The Terminator, right? Machines versus humans. I don't know about you, but for me, this was a moment. This was a moment. Arnold Schwarzenegger, what is that? Right? I wasn't really sure. But it's also the concept of machines becoming intelligent was kind of the first time I really thought about that. A machine for me at that point in time was this big, massive computer my dad used to bring home that it took 2 people to carry, that was green screen based, and I did typing on it, and I got 0 out of it. It was for my typing course at high school, right? So for me, this brought the concept of man versus machine. Will machines ever take over the world? Will I live in this utopian society where I have to do nothing and machines are doing it? And when do they get a bit angry and start taking over? Right? So that's for me, right? So the great thing though is if we look at machines, if we look at machines, they actually will never outsmart us. Right? I know a lot of us are thinking, well, yeah, they probably will, because they're getting smarter. They're actually starting to think. They're actually starting to think of the toes. The whole emotions element, you could argue that's getting involved, right? But if you look at this gentleman here, right? So this gentleman, there's an IBM, I don't know if maybe someone in the room, IBM created a computer. Remember the chess computer IBM created 50 years ago? Still kind of, did it work, did it not work? So they created another one called the Mist Debater. Right? So it was a debating machine, right? This gentleman, Rajan, right? He had a debate against this computer. The topic was, should preschool be subsidized? Kind of an emotional topic, right? The computer debated in favor of it being subsidized. And Rajan had to debate in favor of it not being subsidized. Right? So they took a poll of the crowd, so the audience was judging this. 79% of the people in the crowd thought it should be subsidized. 12% no, the rest not really sure, right? They did 4 minutes, so 4-minute intro on each side, 4-minute rebuttals, then they did another survey, okay? So Rajan got, he was what, 79% against? He got that down to 62%. He had a 17% swing in that debate. And so he was asked, how did you do that? I 100% focused on emotion. So that's the key, right? Machines will never have the emotion piece. The artificial intelligence, all the data we put into things, the emotional element is a truly human element that will never be replicated, in my opinion. Okay? So from a we believe at Dell, as well as other partners we work with, that there's absolute pitfalls with AI, right? So it's a great thing, it's the new thing, it's a lot of opportunity and potential to come out of, which we'll talk about in a bit, but we feel that there's bias, privacy, and retention challenges that will come inherently through AI. Not necessarily, sometimes an output, but also sometimes an input. Right, so bias, right? We all know what bias is, the views of a group or individual based on your data, your knowledge, or your feelings, right? So biased data, right? Bad data. I remember back in 1995, I was working at IBM in Canada. I was a part of a large team that built their first e-commerce engine, first e-commerce website. We built this ingestion model that we're putting data into, right? So after all that, it was ready. So who's the guy who's going to put all the data in? This guy. Why? I was my first job. I was the new guy on the ground, right? So I had to take PDF data and put that into this system. The data that came out of it was so bad, and I spent more time fixing the data than I did actually helping build the data ingest machine, right? So bad data is the data is as good as you put in. Right? So cleansing data is always going to be the challenge, right? So lack of transparency. Who here has any Scooby-Doo how ClearScore does your credit score? No idea, right? That was called out in the earlier presentation. I think it's something that's always going to be a challenge in the world, but that's also going to erode the trust that your organizations will have with your customers. And then bias can bite back. The reputational down or hit from a biased outcome is not necessarily a good thing in any shape or form. It's good if you're honest about it. The Amazon example, they were very honest about it, wanted people to know, wanted people to understand they're trying to make that change and do something about it, but there was still collateral damage, okay? Data exploitation. So this has been going on forever. Who here has a Nectar card? It's been going on since that long. They've been collecting your data for so long, it's unbelievable. But it's kind of natural. So much so that BP Garage, do you have a Nectar card? No. Would you like one? Yeah, why not? You don't see any malice towards that. And you're like, yeah, I'll get in there. But how they're using that data to actually attract you or to target you is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also an interruption to your privacy, okay? Identification and tracking. I had a very interesting conversation 10 years ago with a UK-based telco. They said if you walked by McDonald's and you had an average, so the iPhone was out for a year at this point in time, and you had an iPhone, and we pushed a McDonald's coupon towards your phone when you walked by them, what would you think? Immediately, it is 10 years ago, I went, wow, not interested, right? Because all I'm thinking is, your bill's kind of expensive, you're pushing ads to me and I'm paying for that? Not really. Then he went, what if you didn't have to pay for your service or your phone? Seriously contemplated that, right? The thing is nowadays, people are actually thinking that. You know, location services and identification and tracking is happening all the time. Burger King just announced, if you walk by McDonald's and you go to this website, we'll know that you walked by based on your phone, we'll give you a coupon to get a 1-cent burger. There's take up, right? But the thing is, the difference is that was given a choice rather than it being pushed upon you, okay? But that being said, it also, again, brings negative connotations, predictions and profiling. So this one, I'll be honest, this one's pretty personal. This hurts, right? So I went on Facebook, I went online, Google, wanted some shorts for the summer, right? On my Instagram ads that are coming through to me, wow, I wish I had a ripped six-pack like all those guys wearing the shorts that are coming to me, right? I clearly don't have a ripped six-pack, right? And I'm feeling a bit, whoa, right? And some of the other things that are getting sent to me, I'm like, I have no interest in any of this, right? So I've been profiled, and I've been profiled in a way that I'm actually not a fan of. How do I stop that on Instagram? Because I love Instagram. I think we all have a little soft spot for Instagram. I have absolutely no idea, right? So it looks like I'm stuck, right? And retention, right? So there's retention of a few things. There's retention of data. Like, so you are told through GDPR, you have the right to have your data deleted. Yeah, you have the right to do it. A lot of people aren't taking it up, which is fine. It's your decision. But do you know that your data is actually really being deleted? So I'm in the IT industry. I know, even though with best intentions from organizations to delete data, they don't find out until after the fact, till that hard drive or disk or whatever it is out of the company downstream, that there's data still on there and it's usable, right? So that's an issue, right? So it's something that's not necessarily considered an AI piece, but it's an input, right? And then customer trust. Customer trust is everything. So you have bad data you put bad data into your engine, you come out with a decision is made to act on something. The fallout from that, from your brand, could put you out of business, okay? Fallout is everything. Dell 20 or 10 years ago had a huge issue, maybe you, hopefully no one in this room has been a part of it. We had batteries going on fire, right? It actually wasn't our fault. It was Sony, and they took responsibility, $490 million responsibility for that. No one knows the Sony bit, they remember the Dell bit, right? And to be honest, at a period of time, that put us in a real challenge in the market. No one trusted us. I was there. It was not a nice place to be, right? And it took a lot of work to get out of that. So what is Dell doing in the AI space? So we're doing quite a lot of things. We're doing a lot of things internally. I do see my expenses, my train tickets being flagged for duplication based on an algorithm that's picking them up. Annoying, but hey, that's part of it. That's part of the process, and I'm actually all for it. We're working with AeroFarms. AeroFarms, their whole statement is around, by 2050, there will be 9 billion people in the world. And by then, there will also be half the amount of farming land available in the world as well, based on growth. This is an indoor vertical farming company, And what they use is on every harvest, they collect 130,000 data points that they use to continuously improve their model of how they farm agriculture, right? So we've been working with them for years. They are data mongers. That's all they care about. The actual crop is great. It ticks all the right boxes right now from a CSR perspective, right? But their focus is literally, that's great, that's an output from it, that's a good output. Our focus is how can we feed humans in 30 years? Autonomo. So Autonomo, interesting company. All they're focused on is cleaning data. Ingesting, so creating different ways to ingest data, clean the data, so then the different car manufacturers who are going through big change themselves right now can use that data to actually benefit the mobility services for humans worldwide. So from an AI perspective, that's a big part of it, the quality of the data, right? And then there's Noodle.ai. So they're very focused on supply chain, right? So at any point in time, there's $480 billion stuck in supply chain. And when it gets stuck, it doesn't mean it gets out eventually. Sometimes it never gets out, right? And if you think of how many crates or trucks that are driving around half empty or a quarter empty, how much CO2 has been created, all those elements, they're working with companies to help drive that out of their business through insights, okay? And then actually there's one here that I've not put on. Dell has actually been in this space for 10 plus years. So if you look at our products, we're trying to stay, you probably wonder, why is the new laptop, like why is this gray color is amazing? It's the world, our customers are the ones who tell us that. And actually people who aren't even our customers are the one who tell us this. We've had a social command center in Austin for the last 10 years, taking multiple streams of structured and unstructured data, listening to that, taking it down, getting great insights, and actually putting that into our products, okay? We didn't do this. In 2004, I was in the UK at a banking customer. We all know trading floors, 20 monitors. We decided to increase the size of the bezel around the monitor by half a centimeter. That immediately cut off $150 million to us. Guess what? We turned that back 2 days later. We had to bring guys from Singapore over to really see the problem, but it just shows you, if we had that insight then and listening to our customer, we wouldn't have made that potentially costly mistake, okay? So AI for good. So Michael Dell and Dell, our whole thing is, our mission statement is, we want to advance human progress through the ability to have access to compute for people with really great ideas, right? So that's what we're all about at Dell. We are working with those companies. We're working with lots of companies. A lot of the companies in this room, we're working with you, and we're trying to not just sell you stuff. We're actually trying to help bring solutions to the table, right? We feel, and we are true believers, that in this world, because it's such a complex world, this is a partnering world. Not a partnering of us and you, it's who do we need to work with to bring you the right outcome solution, right? So I know it's a bit of a pitch, sorry about that, but that is our mission statement, right? Okay, so just on a closing statement. So one thing, we didn't really talk about regulation in the good. We inherently believe that every company in this room and every company globally have a responsibility themselves, right? As a part of CSR programs, as a part of your moral practice. We firmly believe that every employee is responsible for the regulation, internal regulation, as well as the what's the word I'm looking for? But doing the right thing is kind of what it comes down to, right? And doing the right thing, we believe that inherently everyone does want to do the right thing. Michael Dell was interviewed 2 years ago about AI, and he was asked, what about bad AI? He goes, do you remember when someone created or someone found fire, and they realized it's kind of cool, right? Like you can cook stuff, you can get warm, you can heat stuff up, and then someone else figured out I can burn the village next door, and I can take all their stuff, right? Unfortunately, there's going to be a big growing process here, but we all, as citizens, have the responsibility to really step in and make sure that the good things are done, right? So that being said, if you look at these QRs, one's for my LinkedIn, the other one is for the presentation if you want to see the video. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank thanks very much, Glenn. Anybody want to, we've got a bit of time for a few questions, so anyone like to comment on what Glenn has just said?
Glenn, thanks for a really interesting presentation. My question is, you talked about the partnering world and who do we partner with to find the best solutions. How do you go about finding those partners, vetting those partners, making sure the relationship is right?
So that's a very interesting point. So we look at the partner piece in multiple areas, right? So most companies have in the financial services insurance space have investech or fintech arms, which they're either investing or helping them along their entrepreneurial journey. We're using that as one way to get great ideas. But when it comes to other partners, we are really looking at what it is they do, the impact they're doing. We're not trying to look at how much they're making. What's the actual solution they're trying to drive? So we're very focused on that. But then we're actually even taking that another layer, right? Because a lot of these people or a lot of these companies have great concepts, right? But the big thing that no one really gets about change is what is the day two operational piece? I've implemented this amazing thing. I have no idea how to run it, right? Because I've done it the same way for 50 years. So I need to change, right? So we're looking at it from where's the journey, right? Truly the outcome, not the 1-2 partners are going to create an outcome. How do we actually take you to the outcome? So that's really what it's all about. So we're looking at a whole ecosystem, and to get into the ecosystem is really not hard. It actually, a lot of it has to be, are you willing to engage with us, right? Because we're willing to engage with you. We've created a team to do this. And if this is your idea, is there actually something in our markets for your idea?
Thank you for the presentation. You talked a little bit at the beginning about the pitfalls of artificial intelligence. Now we all know that it is improving and it's getting better and better along the way. Do you have some ideas about the bigger picture? So where are we heading as a whole, provided that we are able to manage artificial intelligence in a proper way? How is our future going to look like? Any ideas about that?
If anything, if you look at what seemed to be impossible, men on the moon, to where we are now, things are much more attainable. I think that journey we're still well on that journey. So you're going to start seeing web applications that allow you to ingest your own data and to get your own outputs. So that becomes much more available to you and I for what it is, whatever it is you're trying to learn. Like my 4-year-old is going to school next year. He's going to learn computing in 2 years. Like who would have thought that was ever going to happen? So it's actually bringing it down to a level where people can start creating their own. The tools are there to create your own AI models. So from that perspective, I think it's just become more and more attainable. 100%.
Glenn, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.